generations to come.
Welcome to another edition of the TDN Writers Room podcast. My name is Bill Finley. I'm a correspondent for the TDN, and I also co-host the Down the Stretch radio show on Sirius XM Radio with Dave Johnson.
How y'all doing? Randy Moss, NBC Sports, back in the home office, looking out a window right here in Minnesota at a snowy landscape. It's now 5 below zero outside.
Oof. It is a beautiful day here in Southern California. Zoe Cadman here with First Racing and First TV. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on.
And good to have Zoe back after a couple weeks. You were certainly missed. And welcome back again to the podcast. So obviously the thing that we want to catch up on each week is what happened on the trail to the Kentucky Derby. You thought it was going to be kind of a quiet week, as the only stakes race that was run was the Sam F. Davis, but actually turned out to be some interesting developments, including the Sam F. Davis. Matter of fact, after this, you're going to hear from Brad Cox, the trainer of the winning horse, John Hancock. If I'm going to grade him, I'm going to give him a B-, I think. He was very game. He was passed in the stretch and definitely came back and won. Buyer figure comes back in 85. I don't know how tough the field was that he was beaten, but he's a lightly raced horse by constitution. Will probably get better from here. But like I said, B- with the opportunity to move up, a horse that will certainly get better, Randy, I think, as the racing continues.
Yeah, but as a Kentucky Derby contender, 85 Buyer speed figure for an early prep he's going to have to improve a whole lot in a pretty short period of time. But I mean, we'd certainly love to own him, right? He's obviously a very talented horse, and it continues a real good run right now for WinStar Farm and their partners, the China Horse Club. They've been involved together now in River Thames, who just won very impressively for Todd Pletcher. Patch Adams, who we'll talk about a little bit.
Thank you for saying that correctly, River Thames, because I've heard Thames an awful lot. Like, what is wrong with you people? It's Thames.
These Americans. And there's a horse running at Oaklawn called Bon Tom, right? Good times.
Yeah.
It's Bon Temps when you hear him run at Oaklawn. I'm like, aha. So there's John Hancock, there's Gunmetal, the really, really good sprinter. They didn't run so well in the Swale, but that's another WinStar China Horse Club horse, as well as John Hancock. So they're really on a roll right now together.
John Hancock was good, and we'll hear from Brad Cox a little bit later on. But in talking to Flavien Prat, going into the first turn, he said he literally thought he was in trouble because he said go and he took off. Now, he's going to need to learn just to relax. And I think Pratt will know a little bit more about him the next time if he rides him again, hopefully. I thought he showed some moxie to handle those fractions, 22-1, 46 and change at Tampa, which can be a little deeper surface. I thought he ran a very game, big race indeed. He's a half to a grade 1 winner in Speech, who incidentally Pratt rode as well. In fact, he got beat in a grade 1 on her when Swiss Skydiver won the Santa Anita Oaks. So Pratt knows the whole family. Is he a great, fantastic horse? No, but he's a good horse. And he proved it with that very, very moxie run on Saturday.
And we'll talk to Brad Cox about this in just a minute, but he's come out to say already he's probably not running next in the Tampa Bay Derby. We'll figure out where he'll run next. And the runner-up, Owen Almighty, trainer Brian Lynch, came out and said that he's now likely, depending on what the owners think, to have a cutback in distance. Instead of staying on the Derby trail, maybe go back to one turn. So that's kind of interesting there because the horse ran really well also in defeat.
Good for him.
So as you can tell, we were all kind of mildly excited, John Hancock, but there was a horse that ran last week that got everybody talking, and that was Colloquial. And of all things, a maiden special weight race on the Friday before the Sam F. Davis at Aqueduct, trained by George Weaver. Now, this horse had some interesting background. Last year, he ran second beaten a nose behind Mentee, who was the horse that was the full brother to Fierceness, trained by Todd Pletcher. They shattered, I don't know how many times they've run 5 furlongs at Aqueduct over the years, probably not that often, but the track record that it stood, I think since 1963, they broke. Hadn't seen or heard from him since then. He comes back in this race, and what does he do? He runs a hole in the wind. He wins by 6, and what's got everybody talking, Randy, is a 106 buyer figure. Now, there's a lot of things to talk about this horse. Mainly, is he a Derby horse, or is he just a real fast horse that's going to be a very good sprinter? We don't know yet. George Weaver the trainer has not said where he's going to run him next. They said they're just playing it by ear at this point. But Randy, what'd you think?
A very, very fast horse. But to me, watching him come down the stretch, especially that close-up low angle, I've never seen him in person. Maybe Zoe has. Big, stocky, barrel-chested kind of horse. And when I saw that, the first thing that ran in my mind was sprinter. To me, he looked like a sprinter, kind of built like a sprinter. Vekoma, his sire, was a little bit better around one turn, I think. I don't think the Dam was a distance horse either in terminology. So I'm looking at Colloquial probably as a sprinter one-turn type going forward. But my God, is he fast. 106 buyer. I texted with Jerry Brown of Thoroughgraph. Jerry gave him a -5.5 on the Thoroughgraph, and he said he's pretty confident about that, which would translate to a much faster number even than the 106 that we gave him the buyer speed figure. But he's definitely fast.
He's a bull of a horse. He is. And Daddy stamps him. That Vekoma really does stamp him. Bolane sold him at Keeneland. They paid $240,000 for him. And if you look at his yearling picture, he is like a bull. He is stocky. He's a good mover. And watch the head on. Like, one thing about Vekomas, when we first saw them at the 2-year-old sales, because Vekoma had that big, rangy action, kind of like a butterfly swimmer. And everyone maybe kind of knocked him a little bit. His best horses move like him. And this guy's not much different. It's such a fluid, big action. And man, oh man, was he impressive. He's a good
rangy. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
All right. So we're all kind of on the same page, but Zoe, there is such a thing called Derby fever. You have a very fast horse. Maybe he's, going to wind up in the Pat Day mile on the Derby undercard. But if you own him, don't you just have to find out, give him one chance to see if he can go 2 turns, and then maybe have the next Justify? Who knows?
Well, sure. I don't see why not. I mean, Why wouldn't you? You'd be crazy not to.
Randy?
But there's also this narrative. Remember, this is 2025, and we know how horses are trained nowadays. And there already are a lot of people saying that in just his second lifetime start as a February 3-year-old, that he ran too fast for his own good.
Right.
That so many of these horses that run just an unbelievable number react physically to it and either never are the same again or take a long time to really bounce back from that. And I think George Weaver's pretty in tune to stuff like that. So I'm wondering if he'll, despite the Derby fever, if he'll kind of, take it easy on him a little bit coming back. And Jack Wolf, the co-owner of Starlight, basically said the same thing in the aftermath of that race. And he's going to let George completely decide what to do. And Jack's really trying hard not to fall victim to Derby fever in this case.
Jack might have a little bit of a temp coming on right now, And
also remember, Jack Wolf from the Starlight, they also own part owners of Citizen Bull. So it's not like they're not others. Yeah. Matter of fact, an interesting thing, and I talked to Jack and he brought this up. Randy, I don't know if you know this or not, or Zoe, if you know this or not. The top 3 buyer numbers of 2025 are Citizen Bull. We'll start with Colloquial, followed by Rodriguez, then Citizen Bull. All 3 are part owned by Starlight Partners. So if it's not like they have to force this horse into the Derby to get a horse into the race. Jack also told me, like you said, Randy, that the decisions will be made by George Weaver. But he gave the opinion, I hope we give him at least 5 weeks off because of what you just said. After that huge number, you don't want to rush him back in 2 or 3 weeks. If you give him 5 weeks off, that's going to make it almost impossible, I think, to make the Kentucky Derby. So we'll see him maybe in the Woody Stevens and races like that. But nothing else. He's a very exciting horse.
Do want to remind you that the TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeneland. There have been 24 graduates of Keeneland sales have won the Kentucky Derby. That's an awful lot. They include the likes of Mage, Nyquist, Always Dreaming, and Triple Crown winner Justify. Is there a Keeneland sold horse headed to this year's Derby winner's circle? There very well could be. 5 of the top 12 Derby prospects on TD Big Balls Thornton's Derby list were sold at Keeneland, including 2-year-old champion Citizen Bull, a $675,000 September grad, and Rodriguez sold at the same sale for $485,000. We'll be right back after this message from Keeneland.
Leslie's Rose, Sierra, Leo.
Mike, $5 million. Thank you.
Carl Spackler, a Mercy. She feels pretty.
This week's Fastest Horse of the Week is brought to you by none other than Independence Hall, one of those fast sires at WinStar Farm. Happens to be Constitution's only undefeated 2-year-old at stud. He was the fastest 2-year-old of his crop. Based on the numbers, he ran a 101 Beyer speed figure in the Nashua, which he won by more than 12 lengths. His first yearlings were sought after at auction by experienced judges like Kenny McPeak and Jacob West. Zoe was just talking about Jacob West. She ran into him on an airboat in Louisiana back in the day. Jacob had this to say about Independence Hall. He's one of the most impressive horses I've ever seen physically, and Independence Hall's first 2-year-olds hit the track this year. Precocity, speed, and looks, all that for a stud fee of just $7,500 at WinStar Farm. Now, the fastest horse of the week, one we have already talked about on this podcast, Colloquial, for trainer George Weaver on Friday at Aqueduct, who ran that monstrously fast 6.5 furlong maiden sprint. And he ran it in a Beyer speed figure again of 106. Colloquial, our fastest horse of the week.
Welcome in now the Gainesway guest of the week, and it's a familiar face here on the TDN Writers Room broadcast, Brad Cox, because he finds his way into the winner's circle, it seems, every weekend in a big race, and last week was no exception as Brad Cox won the Sam F. Davis with John Hancock. Brad, a couple quick questions for you. First of all, you've said that you don't think you're going to run him back in the Tampa Bay Derby because it comes up too soon. So if not the Tampa Bay Derby, where do you think you will go with him?
I think all the preps, the end of March, 1st of April are in play. Arkansas, Louisiana, Florida Derby, all those are races that, Wood Memorial as well. So, he did come out of it in good order, happy with what we saw from him day after, and he'll go back to the track tomorrow. But, I just think it gives the horse an opportunity to, regroup a little bit and take one big swing at a 100-point race that hopefully propels him forward.
And Brad, he didn't make his debut until January. I think it was January 8th. That's yes, correct. Why was he a little slow to get to the races?
He came in last summer, or I would say spring, and training through the summer. And we moved him down to Ellis. He was close to making his debut, and just wasn't happy with the way he's moving. Just sent him home. No major issues at all. Just needed some time off. Young horse was asking for a break. He got it, and he returned. And was a fresh, happy horse, and he showed that when he made his debut there at Tampa in January.
Well, you had to be impressed by the determination he showed. He would not let that horse Owen Almighty go by him. And now, as usual, you're in a position where it's a nice problem to have, but you've got to sort through these 3-year-olds and the prep races and where you're going to run who. So let's we're talking obviously Patch Adams and Rapture, who just broke his maiden, Tapit Street, who ran such a huge race in defeat last time out in the Holy Bull. So what do you do? Let's say Tappan Street. Let's start with him. What about his next start?
I think we're gonna do the Florida Derby. Once again, it's a race that offers 100 points to the winner. You get a good few points for running second, and he's picked up 20 out of the. Or I'm sorry, no, he picked up what did he get? 8 or out of the Holy Bull. So give him one big swing, and obviously this Derby trail, it's tough to go through the grind of it, but it's not just about getting in the Derby. You want to have something left if you're able to get to the Derby. So we just feel like one more run with him. He's had 2 runs there at Gulfstream, and one more run if it went well, would once again propel him forward as well.
And with Tappan Street and the Holy Bull, I know some people probably were watching the race, seeing him for the first time, and about the 3/8 pole, they're thinking, "Oh, this is not good. He's already under a ride." But that's Tappan Street, right?
Yeah, if you watch his first race, he come under a ride at the 3/8 pole, going 7/8 there. I don't have a lot of experience at Gulfstream, but I do see horses kind of come under rides, and it doesn't seem like it's a real speed favoring track. I think the old Gulfstream, in past years, maybe speed was a little better than it seems to be this year. But he is one that you kind of have to ride along, but he stays on, and that's obviously give us the confidence to think that it'll be better the further. Obviously big ask of him last time to go a 2-turn mile and a 16th off of no more than a maiden win. Lacks experience, and I think he's definitely be a better horse moving forward.
I want to go back to John Hancock really quickly. I was speaking to Pratt about him yesterday because he went and rode him. And I said, oh boy, I thought you were in trouble going into the first turn, because he said he broke so sharp. He said he wanted to get position, and then he was skiing through like 22-1. Were you concerned? Because he was definitely concerned, and he was pleasantly surprised he still had horse.
Yeah, I was very concerned. Yeah, and then I really was. And obviously Irad and Owen Almighty was, glued to him. And then when they turned up the backside, it looked like, Irad kind of, put his horse head and head with ours. And I thought, this hopefully just stays on, and he can finish up well. And at that point, I honestly didn't think he could win with the trip he was getting. But, once again, we have opinions. Horses have the answer, and he gave us the answer we were looking for. It was a very gritty, determined effort from him.
And at the 16th pole, Irad, of course, being Irad, tried to come over on him and intimidate him a little bit, and he bowled his way through that as well. So,
yeah, nice he showed a lot of grit and determination. You see that with that stallion. That they can be a handful at times, but I think when they're put into a tight spot, they'll respond in a positive way. Constitutions.
And what about the name? When were you given that name? Because they must have been saving that name for a good horse. That is a hell of a name.
Yeah, no, it's a good name. He's definitely named after not the trainer. It's not common people. Allison, the racing secretary at Tampa, asked me. I said, no, he's definitely not named after the trainer. But nothing against the trainer, does a great job, especially with 2-year-olds. But it's a pretty cool name given the pedigree.
Okay, I have to jump in here for a second, and just somebody pointed out to me that John Hancock did not sign the Constitution. He signed the Declaration of Independence. So I know we kind of think of all these, founding fathers as the same. But, maybe they kind of got a little mixed up there. That has nothing to do with whether it can run or not. But John Hancock did not sign the Constitution.
Well, that's the story, right? Okay. Everybody thinks John Hancock signed the Constitution, but he actually didn't.
Okay. Brad, let's switch to your 3-year-old fillies. As you look good with your 3-year-old colts, you look super good with your 3-year-old fillies, including Good Cheer, who's going to run this Saturday in the Rachel Alexandra. Undefeated last year, 4 for 4, didn't make the Breeders' Cup, but really showed how good she was later on in the year. Just give us the lay of the land. How is she doing? How is she coming into this race?
I really love how she's doing. I know it's typical trainer talk, but she is training well. We've had her down at Payson, training her. She gets through that track very well, and I think if you can get through that track and you're working well, galloping out well, you can normally take your show on the road. This is our first season there, and we've had some success out of there. So I'm hoping she can, show up as a 3-year-old, just like she did as a 2-year-old. I think she's very good. I mean, it's not a big field, but I think it's a very good group of 3-year-old fillies, and a lot of people know that this path through New Orleans is, a very good path toward, having success in the Kentucky Oaks. So I'm excited about getting her started on Saturday, and think she's as good as she was as a 2-year-old.
Well, since Immersive has now been sidelined, your 2-year-old filly champ until probably the summer with bone bruising, you've got not only Good Cheer, but Eclatant, who looked pretty good winning the Forward Gal. What are her prospects going forward for stretching out?
I'm not sure. We're going to, she's had 4 total runs, 3 around 1 turn. They've all been wins. And, I thought she got a really good trip in the Goldenrod. Just didn't finish up quite as well as we expected. She came out of the race great shape. Obviously, she showed that at Gulfstream last weekend. And we're not certain where we're going to go with her. We'll nominate her to everything, the Gulfstream Oaks, the Devona Dell, the Beaumont, and, just kind of see, what Stone Street would like to do with her. If they want to give her an opportunity around 2 turns, I'd be more than happy to try it. She's a good mover. I thought she would handle the 2 turns in the Goldenrod, and it wasn't a disaster, just didn't go quite as well as we expected.
2,500 wins. How did that feel with Eclatant in the winner's circle?
Well, it was unexpected because I didn't realize we were that close, to be really honest. So, look, it's a nice achievement. Obviously, team effort. It's not an individual achievement. It's team. It's all about the team we have in place and great owners and great horses, and just very fortunate to be a part of a great group of people and very good horses.
You mentioned Payson and that being your first year. What led you to Payson, and where are your divisions now? Because you have a lot of horses and you're pretty spread out. Where are you?
Yeah, right now, Payson, Fairgrounds, Oaklawn, and a few at Turfway, and some at Belmont. So, we have 5 divisions. For the most part, everyone that runs an operation has been with us for several years. Blake, my son, looks after the Payson group division. That just kind of stemmed from having a lot of really good horses and keeping horses in a really good climate where you don't miss training, and you can, have some, run some horses in some Derby preps, along with being able to ship horses around the country and not missing any training due to weather. So, it's worked out very, very well. I'm very happy with the way things have went so far, and hopefully it'll continue into the spring.
It's a pretty awesome place to be for the winter. Where are you now? Are you at Payson? Because I would be.
I was at Payson for the last 10 days. I'm currently at the Fairgrounds right now. So, but yeah, Blake made a comment this winter. My son looks after the string there. He said if a horse doesn't do well at Payson, they're not going to do well anywhere, because it's horse heavy.
Brad, let's stay on the subject of 3-year-old fillies, because you got another one that's awfully good in Mohima. Mm-hmm. Where is she headed and how's she doing?
She's doing really well. She's a very good workhorse. She's been good since day one. She's continued to be very good. Another one that we're hoping can transfer her 2-year-old form over to her 3-year-old season. We're looking at the Honeybee at Oaklawn with her. And once again, super happy with the way she's moving and breezing. And if she's, returns to form, she will be in good shape, because she's a very good filly.
Yeah, I mentioned Good Cheer and Eclatant. You got so many good horses. It's hard to. It's easy for one of them to slip through the cracks, like with me and Mohima. So Patch Adams, let's go to him now. Let's get back to the Colts just a little bit. Did you lose any confidence in Patch Adams off his last race?
Well, I watched him breeze on Saturday morning at Payson, and if I did, I regained it, because he put in a really good move there. He's a good colt. He really is. I was a little confused with the Southwest watching it being, as it unfolded. I didn't expect to be where we were. I didn't expect Bob's horse to be where he was. Mark Cassie's horse is obviously very good, and he had a really rough start. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that race. I'm going to give him another shot. I think we're maybe looking at the Tampa Bay Derby with him. But he's a good horse. He's a lot of talent. I think, he's going to make a splash in one of these Derby preps. Well, he's only going to have, 1 or 2 more opportunities, but I think he's going to step up and run big in his next run if he's doing as well leading up to the Tampa Bay Derby as he was this past weekend.
All right, you said Disco Time had a little setback, and that kept him out of the Risen Star. What's an update on him and Rapture, the horse that broke his maiden so impressively on the Southwest Undercard?
Rapture's doing very well. Not sure where we're going with him. Maybe the Virginia Derby could be an option. It's a 50-point race. It's a 1-turn mile and an eighth. It's mid-March. It gives him plenty of time. Disco Time did, I just wasn't happy with the way he came out of the Lecomte. He is back to the track and training. Very happy with the way we had some diagnostics run on him. He passed everything. He looks good, and he's moving well, and we'll get him back on the brief schedule here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, the Virginia Derby makes its TDN podcast debut, Zoe. How about that?
That's pretty awesome. Do you have any 3-year-olds that maybe are not on our radar that we should know about, Brad?
There's a colt running this weekend for Godolphin. He's debuting going long, and it looks like a race where there's some horses with some experience. His name's Coffee Talk. He's a nice colt. He's really come around over the last few weeks. There's a couple fillies running this weekend we really like, a complexity named Velvet Vortex, a Nyquist filly named Unwavering Trust. They've trained really well. I would expect them to run big. So there's 3 maidens there that'll debut this weekend at the fairgrounds that, listen, I'm not saying they'll win, but I think, they're solid horses that, could potentially be stake horses in the future.
Let me get my pen here. Coffee Talk, Unwavering. Okay, there we go. All right. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, thank you.
Brad, I wouldn't call you an overnight sensation because you've been around for a long time, but 10 years ago, we would not be having you on this podcast because till Monomoy Girl came around, your accomplishments were not as nearly as noteworthy as they are now. Do you have to pinch yourself sometimes to think how far you've come in a relatively short period of time?
Well, listen, obviously watch guys like Todd Pletcher and D. Wayne Lucas throughout the years, and was, they were my idols, and, wanted to, have a barn full of nice horses like them. And yeah, it's cool to be in a position to where, guess what, you have to open up a pacing because you have, so many nice horses and you need location. But no, it's a lot of hard work that goes into it, and a lot of great help. That's really what it comes down to in great horses, and people believing in you, and you believing in your staff, and just really having a good team to work with, and great horses.
When was the last time you took a holiday?
About a year ago, I took maybe a 3 or 4 day vacation. And I feel like I'm due another one, but with being in the position we are with, obviously, nice horses and trying to get to the Oaks in the Derby, we'll maybe do a little something after the Derby, and then I'm sure after the Derby it'll turn to after the Triple Crown season, and then it'll be after Saratoga, and then it's after the September sale, and then after the Breeders' Cup. So it never ends, but it's fun. I love what we do, and it's we got a great team and a great group of horses.
So this could be a Brad Cox trivia question. I just went into my database to look for the first graded stakes Derby prep that you won as a trainer. You remember?
Yeah, I think. I'm going to go with Owendale, the Lexington.
Owendale, the Lexington.
And
what year would that have been?
I think maybe 19.
You are right.
I think.
Owendale and the Lexington. And you also won with Mr. Monomoy. There's a name from the past.
Oh, Risen Star.
And yes. The Risen Star the very next year, 2020. Those were your first 2.
Yes.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for joining us and being the Gainesway Guest of the Week. Best of luck this weekend with good cheer and all your other horses coming up on the road to the Derby and the Oaks. And once again, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, Brad.
Our guest of the week, Brad Cox, brought to you again courtesy of Gainesway. To use a football term, Gainesway had a hell of a recruiting season last year, and we'll have 4 new stallions when the breeding sheds open on Saturday, including Tappet Trice. Of course, his sire, Tappet, famously stands at Gainesway, and it's kind of interesting to note that as a racehorse, Tappet made $557,000 on the track. Tappet Trice More than 3 times that, $1.8 million, 4 graded stakes wins, including the Bluegrass Stakes, and those 4 graded wins tie for the most by any horse retiring to stud in 2025. Back in the day, Tapit Trice was a $1.3 million yearling, partially because of his sire Tapit, and also because his dam is a half-sister to champion filly Jaywalk. Tapit Trice standing at Gainesway for an initial fee of $12,500. Gainesway, power, passion, performance.
Here comes that big gray Tapit Trice right down the outside.
Tapit Trice wins the Toyota Bluegrass.
Tapit Trice's 2024 debut was awesome.
Tapit Trice is lunging. Tapit Trice wins the Woodward.
In this week's edition of First Things First, I caught up with the ever-smiling Mr. Frankie Dettori.
Take me through your trip, Frankie. It looked like it was pretty easy. Were you surprised to be up there on your own?
Yes, I mean, when I looked at the form, it was not particularly a lot of speed. And I jumped with the intention to go forward. I got a nice, easy lead. And when I got him to the back, I just got him off the rail a little bit. He was playing with his ears. I went, great. And from the 3/8, I wind it up. And I thought, well, it's good enough, because I had the perfect trip. And when I pressed the button and I looked around, I was 3 in front. And that was it, all over.
Nobody was coming.
Good, I like it.
I like it. Where are we going skiing? Ready?
Well, soon, because we had a bit of rain and hopefully we get some more rain next week. So we're all on.
All right, let's go.
And yes, we're looking forward to going skiing, but not this Monday like I had planned, because we do have a 4-day racing week coming up on President's Day. So we will race from Friday through Monday. So just a reminder that we will have special holiday racing on Monday. As far as the stakes are concerned, the Grade 3 Palos Verdes is the headline on Saturday, and it will feature last year's winner in Big City Lights. Good news for horsemen and horsewomen, as Santa Anita has announced some purse increases, which is absolutely brilliant to hear. Between 8 to 11% for overnight purses, and those will start on February the 28th. Good things happening at Santa Anita.
Well, the news out of Saudi Arabia this week was that who wants to run? $20 million. Nobody's all that tempted. I've never seen anything quite like this unbelievable purse. And everybody, for different reasons, is saying no to it. Sierra Leone had a minor injury. He's not going to run. They expect that maybe he'll be back for the Oaklawn Handicap. Locked, who ran very well to finish second behind White Abarrio after a tough trip in the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. They've said no. And the one that was the most surprising to me was White Abarrio, who is co-owned by a Saudi prince, but he doesn't call the shots. The Cornette brothers of C2 Racing do. They said they are not going to run in the Saudi Cup. Instead, they're going to run in a race on the Ghost Zapper on the Florida Derby card as a prep for the Met Mile. Zoe, $20 million, I guess, doesn't go as far as it used to. What's going on here?
Not as far. And I think it's the case a lot of times of less is more now. A lot of people have realized that going either to Dubai or Saudi kind of interrupts with plans for the rest of the year. Horses need significant time off after making the trip. No matter how well they bounce out of it and come back, they're going to miss, say, those classic races in the summer, the Midsummer Derby. You're going to miss the Met Mile. You're going to miss a bunch of key races. The Soul of the Angel thing, I think a lot of that was to do with they couldn't get hold of anyone. She was fourth on the reserves, then she was third, and then perhaps she was first, but they couldn't get hold of anyone to discuss it. And they're like, yeah, all right, we're not going. Locked, I'm delighted to say, looks like he's coming to Santa Anita for the big cap. So good to have a headline horse there. And the foot abscess basically kept Sierra Leone out. So they'll still have a full field over there, but, you have to feel for them a little bit. I know you don't, Bill, but they're missing several headline horses.
Yeah, it's when you look at the quality of the horses that they are going to have, including Romantic Warrior, Forever Young. I mean, it's going to be a hell of a Saudi Cup. It's going to be really, and also the Dubai World Cup winner from last year that ran lights out. What was his name? Zoe. Bob Baffert trained him.
Laurel River.
Laurel River. Yeah, I mean, those three are unbelievable.
You got Straight No Chaser going over there, the Breeders' Cup Sprint winner. So, they're going to be okay, I think.
So to me, this is just 100% circumstances. I think $20 million still resonates over here as much as it ever did. I think next year you may look up and there may be 5 American horses in the Saudi Cup. But you had Senor Buscador, who went over there and was really never the same coming back. And they were thinking about bringing him, but he just didn't train very well going up to it. Fierceness had a little procedure. He's not going to be ready to run till at least April. Just various setbacks that horses have had. Locked is the only one that really kind of surprised me a little bit, but I think it's just circumstance.
Well, Randy, why weren't you surprised by Wyatt Averio?
Because he ran so poorly over there last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
He went over there and just completely laid an egg. I don't think he traveled well to get over there. And
Not
so,
a good shipper.
Yeah, I think, and we talked about that earlier. I think it all came down to how much coercion C2 would get from the member of the Saudi royal family that was a minority owner in the horse, and apparently he went along with it to not go back and push the envelope one more time.
Well, there is one American horse, Rattle and Roll, trained by Ken McPeak. He will be over there. I would get, not knowing all that much about the foreign horses, but, maybe he's got a shot. He won a prep already in Saudi Arabia. And before that, he won the Clark Stakes. And Kenny McPeak, he knows what he's doing, I think. So you never know. Maybe we will get the one American horse into the winner's circle. But Randy, I agree with you. I think that the races like the Met Mile and the Whitney have become so prestigious and so important to a horse's stud value that even at the $20 million, people don't want to screw up the chances to win races like that.
Especially if they've gone over there before and it didn't end well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So more on the decoupling front. This week, it was more about Tampa Bay Downs than about Gulfstream. New legislation was passed in some house or some committee. I get all that kind of stuff mixed up. I don't really care. That moved the possibility of decoupling in Florida, moved it forward. But the news was that now Tampa Bay Downs, which does not have slots or a casino but has a card room, is now is included in the legislation. And Zoe, the people I talked to the head of the Tampa Bay Downs horse HBPA, says he's not too worried about it. He says that Stella Thayer, the owner, loves racing, doesn't think that she's all that worried about making money. He thinks that Tampa will be fine. But he also said, I'm going to fight this because it's not just about Tampa. It's about decoupling all across America, and he doesn't want to see a domino effect.
And that was trainer Mike Deeney, who
right,
you
Mike
would have
Deeney,
spoken
exactly.
to. And Mike, a very good horseman, a very good trainer, and he's kind of got his finger on the pulse of everything that's going on at Tampa Bay Downs. And he rightly said that, Tampa Bay Downs, obviously that's on some money.
Sure.
He reckons it's worth about $500 million, but Stella Thayer is adamant that Tampa's not going anywhere.
Stella Thayer she's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
She was the president of the TRA. She was the president of the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame in Saratoga. She has a long, long history in horse racing, and she's owned Tampa Bay Downs along with her younger brother, Howell Ferguson, for going on, 40 plus years now. I could go down a rabbit hole and talk about the auction between them and George Steinbrenner back in 1986. There was a controversy there. No surprise that Steinbrenner butted heads with Stella Thayer about some ownership details, and there wound up being this big auction at Tampa in November. Doug Don was there to bid for the owner of Gulfstream Park. John Brunetti was there, the owner of Hialeah, to bid. The owner of Ellis Park, who lived in Oldsmar, was there to bid. And ultimately, Stella Thayer outbid them all, bid $16.5 million for Tampa Bay Downs back in 1986. So she is, she's put her money up. But here's the issue. Okay, she's 84 years old.
Yeah,
and her younger brother, I believe, is 80. Now together they have 4 adult children. What happens when they're gone? Okay, you can say, okay, decoupling is one thing, all right? But look, it's the legislature that approved decoupling. It's the legislature that can undo decoupling. Regardless of where you are, regardless whether it's in Gulfstream or Tampa or any place else around the country, it's just all going to boil down to the success of the horse racing industry. If the horse racing industry is going down the tubes, legislatures will decouple. Track owners will want to decouple, and they won't get much pushback. If the industry is robust, then that's another thing that protects racing a little bit more in a situation like that. But decoupling is just strictly at the whim of politics. Whatever legislature is in force at the time, and whatever owner owns that particular racetrack. Fortunately, right now, Stella Thayer and her brother Hal Ferguson are seemingly very committed to horse racing.
Yeah, it's a really nice track. It kind of goes, flies under the radar because everybody is so focused on Gulfstream in South Florida. But it's kind of a cute little track. The weather's good. They run really good racing for lousy purses there because they don't have any other form of revenue other than the betting handle they have. So let's hope that Mike Deeney, who Zoe said really has his finger on the pulse, is right about that. He sounded pretty confident, at least in the short term. Like you said, Randy, with the Thayer family being up in their 80s. Yeah. But in the short term, he thinks everything will be fine. What will happen 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Well, that's something that I think all racetracks right now need to worry about, other than the obvious ones like Saratoga.
And they could actually find themselves in a very good position because there's a couple of ways this whole controversy could shake out, right? I'm still not convinced that, as a lot of people are, that Gulfstream Park is in a coffin and there's a grave digger starting to dig the grave, right? I think there are enough people out there, hopefully, with a lot of money who love horse racing, who might be willing to step in, maybe form a partnership, okay, and buy Gulfstream Park and the property. The real estate is not going to depreciate. It's going to be a real estate investment long term. And if they love horse racing enough to keep it going in the short term, okay, that's the best case scenario. Failing that, I think what you may see, guys, is a deal cut with Brunetti somehow to allow the winter dates to go back to Hialeah, which could then put them in a position to host the Breeders' Cup again someday. And then the rest of the dates to Tampa. So you may see Tampa with a very expanded racing schedule, if it shakes out without Gulfstream Park in South Florida. So there's a lot of different ways this thing could go.
So I have texted John Brunetti Jr. to find out if he has any thoughts about Hialeah's future with this whole situation going on. He has not answered me, so I don't know if that means anything. But as your intrepid reporter for the TDN, I'm trying.
So have I. I have, I think it is encouraging. I think that he hasn't come out with a definitive no.
Right.
If he was absolutely dead set against it, I think we would have heard it by now. Because there's enough people like me chattering about Hialeah and the possibility of Hialeah being a good fallback position if something goes down with Gulfstream. That if he was against it, I think you would have already heard it by now.
Let's hope so.
Well, I mentioned it earlier, but XBTV has a new name. So this week, the TDN Writers Room is brought to you by First TV. That is 1/ST TV. A new name, same great content. This week's First TV Work of the Week is Just Basking, who worked Friday over the turf at Palm Meadows in a rapid 47-4 because she was way on the outside fence. It was the fastest work of 54 at the distance on the day. You may remember Just Basking. She broke her maiden and won the Iowa Oaks before finishing third by just a length in the Grade 1 Alabama at Saratoga in her most recent start last August. Trainer Ian Wilkes has not yet picked out a race for the 4-year-old. We'll be right back after this message from XBTV/First TV.
Be a smarter, better with XBTV. The best horses. With thousands of exclusive morning workouts. All at your fingertips and delivered right into your inbox. Everything you need to be informed. Be smart. Bet smart with XBTV.
PA Bred, I think we've built a brand at this point.
It's excitement at every step.
Roses for Deborah just set a new track record.
On average, for the past decade, Pennsylvania paid over $28 million a year in Breeders' Awards, restricted races, and owner bonuses. Plus, PA Bred shine on the world's biggest stage. Just 3 states have bred more Breeders' Cup winners. Learn more at pabred.com.
And as always, the TDN Writers Room also brought to you by the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association, a.k.a. the PHBA, from the Department of Interesting Nuggets. And no, this doesn't involve George Steinbrenner and Stella Thayer. Of course, we all know, owners know, that the winner of a typical $50,000 race earns 60%. They get $30,000. Every owner knows that math. But if you have a registered PA bred, you get an owner's bonus, and you can receive up to $42,000. And if you had bred that horse to one of the 36 registered PA sires, those earnings then increase to $58,800, more than the original purse, and close to what you would get for winning a $100,000 purse. And in Pennsylvania, you can find stallions by Capit, Curling, Munning, Street Sense, Speightstown, Medallion Oro, Gunrunner, Cross Traffic, Good Magic, and many more, including 10 new sires for 2025. It's not too late to book. Go to pabred.com and check out the PA Stallion and Boarding Farm directory on the homepage and book your next or maybe your first PA bred.
The main attention this weekend in racing will be at the fairgrounds. We have a giant card, including preps for the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks, or also for the Louisiana Derby and the Fairgrounds Oaks. Why don't we start with the boys in the Risen Star, which is the 14th race on the card. And I'm excited to see East Avenue come back. Everybody knows this story. He looked fantastic winning the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland before running as the favorite behind Citizen Bull Gaming and others in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. The race is a complete throwout. He stumbled badly at the start, was dead last, never got involved in the race. Trained by Brendan Walsh. Looks like he's been training quite well down at the fairgrounds. Though this is no gimme. There's some other pretty good horses in there, including Jonathan's Way, who finished second last time out behind First Resort in the Kentucky Jockey Club and is making his 3-year-old debut. But Zoe, is it East Avenue or is it someone else?
It's East Avenue. Hopefully everything goes right for him this time. No stumbles, no excuses. He's apparently training like an absolute beast down there. And just judging by how good he looked as a 2-year-old in November of last year and October, I can only imagine what he looks like now. He's by Medaglia d'Oro out of a Ghost Zapper mare, so he's got a bit of everything really that you could ask for. He's just going to have to get a clean trip. He is without a doubt the horse to beat in there. I will give Built another shot. Obviously, his numbers went downhill a little bit last time after that run in the slop. But after hearing from Brad Cox, looks like it's supposed to rain again this weekend. So if the track is fast, I'm going to use Built as well. If it's not, perhaps I'm not really quite sure who I'm going to use, because he definitely, while he ran a good race to just be beaten a neck, that wasn't the best race he's ever run. So I do believe that Built is a good horse. The best horse is East Avenue.
Totally agree. And we're likely to learn a little bit about East Avenue in this spot, because when he broke his maiden and he had that unbelievable win in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, he controlled the pace all the way with no real challenges. I mean, he set a pretty quick pace in the Breeders' Futurity, but he went wire to wire. Here, if you look at the race, there's there's very little early speed to go with him, except the number 1 horse, American Promise, trained by Wayne Lucas, who hesitated at the start in his last time out in the Southwest. He's probably gotten a little schooling since then, and he's breaking from post number 1 in a big field. So Keith Asmussen is going to have to go from post 1. He went wire to wire in fast time before that in a maiden win at Oaklawn in the mud. So I think they're going to have to go with American Promise. And so East Avenue could get some pace competition in here, and we'll see if he's just as good, if he gets a little bit of a challenge and he stalks early, as opposed to how good he was when he was on the pace.
Weather for New Orleans, Friday is clear. Saturday, 65% chance of rain and 60 on Sunday. So obviously that'll change, but it's supposed to rain all week. The only clear day is Friday. And knowing New Orleans, as I've lived there an awful lot, it loves to rain on the weekends in New Orleans. So I'm calling for rain all day Saturday.
Okay. Well, then that means the horses in the Rachel Alexandra may also have to negotiate a sloppy track. We've already heard from Brad Cox, who has the favorite in there, Good Cheer, undefeated horse who is making her first start of 2025. This is a tough race, though. This is no gimme for her. Simply Joking is a serious horse. Last time out in the Silver Bullet Day on the slop, she looked really good, drawing off to win by 2.5 lengths. She's got a lot of ability, so I don't think that Good Cheer is necessarily going to just lay over this field. A little bit disappointed that they only got 6 horses. Ballerina d'Oro ran second in the Demoiselle last year, comes from the clouds for Chad Brown. She obviously is going to be a contender as well. Randy, your thoughts on the Rachel Alexandra?
It's a heck of a race between Good Cheer, Ballerina d'Oro, and Simply Joking. It could go, any of the 3 ways. Simply Joking has a tactical advantage, I think, over the other 2 because of her speed. Good Cheer just does not get away from the gate well at all. In all of her races, she just did not jump very quickly. But then she has this devastating turn of foot around the second turn that's just visually so impressive. And Ballerina d'Oro has even less speed than Good Cheer. She completely drops out the back end. She does not break well at all. And then when she does, she's still kind of slow into stride. And last time out, she went 1.8 miles at Aqueduct and still couldn't quite get up, lugging in a little bit on her left lead coming down the wire. But they all 3 run comparable numbers, and it's going to be a heck of a race. If Zoe's right, and it rains on the weekend, right, and it's a sloppy racetrack, to me, that could give the edge to Simply Joking just because of her running style.
Maybe, but I mean, one of the best races to date with Good Cheer was when she won that allowance race at Churchill by 17 in the slop.
In the slop, yeah.
So she can be closer in the slop, and that's probably going to be the plan, depending on how the racetrack is indeed. But I firmly believe it's Good Cheer and Simply Joking for me.
The TDN Writers Room brought to you by West Point Thoroughbreds. The early nominations for the 2025 Triple Crown include 10 3-year-olds owned or co-owned by West Point, including stakes winners Bullard, Keep It Easy, and Pascaline, as well as, this horse is not a stakes winner, but he may go to the top of the list, Southwest Stakes troubled runner-up Sandman. 6 of those 10 were acquired at yearling sales. 4 came from 2-year-old and training sales. And interestingly, Bullard and Sandman right now are both being pointed for the $1.25 million Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn on Feb 22, where it looks like they could be facing Barnes in an enticing showdown. Now here's more from West Point.
All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
That's a wrap on this week's show. I want to thank my co-hosts, Randy Moss and Zoe Cadman, as well as our Gainesway guest of the week, Brad Cox. All the people who work so hard behind the scenes, our producers, Katie Petruniak, Sue Finley, Anthony LaRocca, and Aaliyah LaRocca. Let's hope for dry weather this weekend at the fairgrounds, and it could be a good day of racing. Talk to everybody next week.